Brave New Web. The next generation of the internet is fast approaching. For those in accounting and finance, it's vital to understand what it means for business. Here's the lowdown. Article by Chris Sheedy. In an episode of the popular podcast Crypto Curious, host Tracy Plowman describes a job she had in the late 1990s. Part of her role with Western Australia's Tourism Commission was to travel around the state and teach small tourism operators about the potential value of the internet to their business. Plowman explained to those operators that the web would introduce their businesses to travelers from around the globe, to an audience bigger than they could ever imagine. They could showcase what they do with photos, videos, and descriptions. Back then, it was so hard, she says. A lot of them would even say, "Look, we just don't believe in the internet." That was seriously what I was getting. It was quite funny. The point she was making in the podcast was that she is sensing the same reaction from many businesses today as Web 3.0 approaches at pace. They simply aren't as aware as they should be of what Web 3.0 involves and the opportunities and risks it presents. A few businesses are already on board. Stuart McLeod, co-founder and CEO of Carbon, the collaborative practice management platform for accounting firms, flags Miner Accountants, the UK's leading cryptocurrency accounting firm, as one that is differentiating itself from the entire market with its expertise around Web 3.0. Yet it would be a mistake to consider that Web 3.0 is simply about cryptocurrencies. It's so much more. To understand Web 3.0, it's important to know what has come before. Web 1.0, developed in the early 1990s, involved static pages that simply offered information, like an online version of a hard copy magazine. There was no interaction or communication. If contact was to be made as a result of a web page capturing a person's interest, it would be via the phone number or email address found on the site. Web 2.0, generally agreed to have begun in 2004, brought enormous leaps forward. Social media was developed, meaning people began interacting and connecting online. We began online shopping and having items we purchased delivered to our doors. With Web 2.0, we became online consumers. This came with a massive trade-off in the form of our privacy. Large centralized organizations owned and exploited our data. At times, the data was alleged to have been used for nefarious purposes, as discussed widely during the Facebook Cambridge Analytica case. The easiest way to think of Web 3.0 is the ability for individuals to not just read and write data from the web, but also to own the data, says Carl Mohan, General Manager for Crypto.com. Firstly, according to Mohan, Web 3.0 is about taking back the power from large, centralized organizations. How does this help? First, it's about privacy, Mohan says. As much as the Googles, Amazons, and Facebooks of the world talk about privacy, they're concerned with anything but. A lot of their contracts allow them to sell your data, he says. Second, increasingly, we're seeing content creators, people who write freelance, people with photography skills, musicians, etc., having the ability to own the creative rights over the content they create, to track every sale and make a commission from every sale. This means that by owning their own data, individuals can now share, commercialize, and control that data themselves, removing the middleman. With Web 3.0, all industries will be disrupted. In finance, it will arrive in the form of DeFi. DeFi is decentralized finance, Mohan says. It's basically peer-to-peer finance. Peer-to-peer finance has been around for a while, but Web 3.0 offers the ability to supercharge and democratize the idea. Coded, smart contracts saved in a blockchain can be created between individuals. These contracts remove the need for a centralized financial organization. When seeking a loan, for example, an individual will no longer have to deal with a bank or credit provider. This means the fees and the time-consuming processes that currently characterize such middlemen will become a thing of the past. There are several benefits to the DeFi model, Mohan says. These include contract transparency and negotiability, cost transparency, and immediacy of transaction. It also opens up banking and credit facilities to anybody, anywhere in the world, as long as they have a smartphone and a web connection. As with today's centralized financial model, there are downsides. There is no centralized controller in the DeFi environment, so if things go south, there is nobody to complain to. In a largely unregulated environment, this means there is room for bad behavior. Hence, the value of accountants and advisors familiar with the landscape. For better or for worse, likely both, this will mean people will have to take greater responsibility for their own finances rather than trusting major institutions, which themselves have sometimes proved untrustworthy. DeFi is probably going to take a generation to even start realizing its potential, McLeod says. The technology always goes faster than the people. I think there's skepticism from the older generations, but younger generations are more enthusiastic for a finance system that is less elitist and more inclusive of more economies. Gavin Appel, founder of startup and business advisory Ignition Lane, says businesses that familiarize themselves with the Web 3.0 environment will quickly differentiate themselves in an increasingly competitive market. The technology world is evolving faster than ever before, Appel says. Status quo is your biggest competition. And it is now impossible to separate business strategy from technological innovation. How you decide to embrace new waves of technology will be a determining factor in creating a competitive advantage for you and your customers.